On up.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Depending if you're in Israel, and good evening for people who are in North America. I'm Mayor Weinstein with the Never Again Live show. I have with me Baruch Ben-Yoseph, who's on Harabayat on the Temple Mount. We're going to be discussing the weekly Parsha. Parsha now, this week, is Parsha's Matot-Masei. There's a lot to be discussed in this. Baruch is going to enlighten us with explanation. There's a lot going on in Israel right now with the chaos of people who are against a Jewish state, trying to hold the state of Israel back, blocking roads, blocking highways, blocking access to hospitals. Insanity going on, and there was insanity when we're leaving Egypt as well. So Baruch, bring us up to
Yeah.
date with the
So
parsha and
yeah,
how it
we
relates to everything.
a lot of crazy things going on here. The only normalcy I would say is basically what we're doing right now, going up to the Temple Mount. That's about the only
Right.
normal thing that's going on. Baruch Hashem, where this year we're going to hopefully set the record. Last year we set the record for most Jews to go up since the destruction 2,000 years ago. Hopefully this year we'll surpass what we did last year. More and more Jews are coming up. More and more Jews are seeing the light. They realize that they've been lied to all these years about going to the Temple Mount, being told it's prohibited. And of course, it's not only is it not prohibited, but it's our obligation to come up to show our presence. And we see the result of more and more Jews coming up. The more and more Jews that come up, the more and more um, liberty we have here to serve Hashem, serve God by praying, saying Psalms, uh, uh, being blessed by the Kohanim. And as you've seen, whoever's been following us the last few months has been able to see that we can pray up here, have a minyan, learn Torah, give over shiurim, give over lessons, Torah lessons. Um, so if there's any improvement whatsoever that's going on, it's only up here. Everything, everywhere else is going downhill, which maybe is the way it should be. The bottom line is that things should get better up here, and so that the people wake up. The people have to be woken up. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And you know what? You mentioned these two portions this week that we're going to be reading on Shabbat. These were, I would say, two of the most favorite portions of Rabbi Kahana, of our
Right.
rabbi. Of course, one of the most famous Torah, Rabbi Kahana Torahs, is from the Parsha of Masei, where we're told that if you don't throw the enemies out of the land, they're going to become thorns onto your sides, and was it like thicklets or something in your eyes or something?
Pistols. Yes.
And of course, and he would love to bring the famous commentary of the Or HaChaim HaKadosh, the famous rabbi from Morocco, Rabbi Chaim Ben Attar, who came to Israel in the 1600s. Who was a Kabbalist. Rabbi Kahana, for the most part, didn't study Kabbalah, but he always loved to bring the Or HaChaim on that pasuk, because he said the Or HaChaim would say that even if there was enough room for everybody, there's no everybody's got room. There's no problem of housing or water or food. There's plenty of room for everybody. Even then, it doesn't matter. You can't allow the enemy to dwell amongst us, because in the end, that's what's going to happen. Is they're going to make your life miserable. It's just that's the way it has to happen. So it doesn't matter if today, with this week, the Netanyahu government, so-called most right-wing government, had a meeting in the prime minister's office to see how they can make the Arabs equal citizens to the Jews in Israel. And of course, that means giving them a lot of money and infrastructure and help them with housing and who knows what. And the exact opposite of what we're supposed to be doing here. The exact opposite of the whole purpose of the Zionist movement, to bring Jews back to Israel and displace. I mean, really, in our understanding of what the Zionist movement is to bring Jews back and displace the enemy with Jews, because we can't live together, and that's what the Torah dictates to us. And anybody who thinks otherwise is in for a rude awakening. I mean, already we see how bad things have gotten throughout the country. And when we had the last operation, not the last one, the one before that in the Gaza, when the Arabs all throughout the country rioted and blocked roads, destroyed infrastructure, attacked Jews, even murdered Jews. So we all these people that thought this the idea of coexistence had it in for a rude awakening. So of course Torah is right, God is right, Rabbi Khan is right, we're right, and now we also see, not only did we see what the Arabs did back a few years ago when they rioted and shut the country down because we were doing an operation to stop the firing of missiles from Gaza. Now we see the enemies from within, the Erev Rav, the mixed multitude of anarchists and progressive leftists are trying to shut down the country and destroy the state because of some insanity that they claim it is. It's probably they just made up a story, but they claim our attempts to have judicial reform to make the judicial system better and to have true government. They see that as being an attempt to bring about dictatorship and destroy democracy. I mean, it's so stupid, it's so ridiculous, but so many people fall for it. I have to wonder. I thought Jews are supposed to be smart.
Right.
If you believe that, there's a big question mark if you're Jewish. That's what I say, because it's just so absurd. And the funny thing we mentioned before, the Biden administration, that they have been attacking what's going on here, interfering in the matters of government in Israel and judicial reform. And one of the main points of judicial reform is how we appoint the judges. But the funny thing is that we want to have a system that's more like what it is in America of appointing judges, and not the ridiculous system that they have here in Israel. And yet the Biden administration attacks us. It's like it's just outright anti-Semitism, such hatred of Jews. It has nothing to do with them being concerned about the democracy in Israel. I mean, it's just so ridiculous. So we see all this absurd stuff going on. We see the lies and the fake news and everything. And again, here's our bastion of truth and sanity is right here. Seeing good Jews getting up early in the morning, people that have to work. Lots of Jews here today. People have to work and learn and whatnot, but they only think of their time. They're not getting paid for this. They're coming up here, and some of them every day. Some people every week. Some people every month. Some people come up for the first time, and people that come up here suddenly realize, they're exposed to the truth, and that's what this is about. We have to get back to the way things were. So we back to the portion. Before we mentioned the verses in Masei. Masei, of course, talking about the borders of the land of Israel, the biblical borders, which is a lot bigger than what we've got right now. A lot bigger.
Right.
Unfortunately, Jews like to settle for the minimum instead of going for the maximum. And it talks about the sojournings in the desert until we finally got to the land. Before that, in the Parsha of Matot, we have, of course, what happens is that it's a continuation of the last two portions that we had. Remember, 2 portions ago, at the end of the portion of Balak, we had the situation where the Midianite women were trying to prostitute the Jewish men and get them to worship their idol, their idolatry, and then causing Hashem to plague the Jews. 24,000, of course, getting killed, dying in the plague, until Pinchas, the son of Eleazar, the grandson of Aaron, comes and intervenes and kills the head of the tribe of Shimon, and the Midianite woman, Kozbi Batsur, which required of him not only tremendous strength, but faith and belief in Hashem, because what he was doing was something that he could have easily been killed over. They could easily have killed him if he had not succeeded. But he had total trust, total faith in Hashem. Pinchas gets rewarded with Hashem's covenant of completeness, of wholeness. Becomes a Kohen, actually, because he wasn't, like we said last week, wasn't a Kohen until he did this act, even though he was the son of Eleazar. So uh, Pinchas, then last week's portion is called Pinchas, and in his honor, where we're told of the reward that he gets for what he did, and stopping the plague, the plague of because he was able to do this act of total trust and faith. Now, in this week's portion, we're told about taking the vengeance upon the Midianites for what they did. There was acts like that of our their enemies, of the anti-Semites, can't go by without being without getting a payback. I mean, you know about the retribution, revenge. This is a major function of true Judaism, the one that Rabbi Kahana taught us, not the fake stuff that they try to sell that Judaism is really Christianity. So the bottom line is that this week's portion tells us that Hashem says to Moshe, take your vengeance on the Midianites, your vengeance.
Yep.
And then after you take your vengeance, you will pass on to the next world. Okay? Then Moshe tells the people, you have to take the vengeance of Hashem, of God. And the question is asked, why did he change the version? Why did he change from the vengeance of Moshe to the vengeance of Hashem?
Mm-hmm.
And we're told that Moshe said that he was afraid that the people knew that his, if he, once this act is done, Moshe is gone, is finished. He's going to the next world, and that the people wouldn't act immediately because didn't want Moshe to leave. He was their leader. So he says, no, it's not my vengeance, it's Hashem's vengeance. And now that because it's Hashem's vengeance, there's no, like Rabbi Kahana taught us, there's no delay for Hashem's vengeance.
Right.
Because of Kiddush Hashem, sanctifying God's name, we can't put it off. Well, we'll do it later. We'll do it next week. We'll do it next year. No, it's got to be done now, right away. And so they went out, led by Pinchas, because we're taught another concept, a very important concept. Even though Pinchas again was not considered what we call the Mashuach Milchama, the Kohen that would lead us out in battle, was called the Mashiach Milchama. And even though Pinchas didn't have that position yet, I think he becomes later, but he's given the position because he started the mitzvah. It says whoever starts the mitzvah should complete the mitzvah. Since he started it, he has to complete it. So he leads the army. In there are 1,000 soldiers from each tribe. They go out and attack and kill the enemy, the Midianite enemy, take the spoils of war, and of course sanctify Hashem's name. Supposedly, in this during this war, they also killed Bilam, who was the arch enemy, the evil prophet who tried to curse, but ended up blessing Israel. But he's also killed in the battle. And one of the important reasons why Pinchas, being the Kohen, leading in the battle, because this battle was not only a military war, but there was a lot of spiritual things going on, being that Bilam was there, so we needed a very high spiritual power to be with us and thwart Bilam and his cohorts. So this is a very important point that that we're told that we're obligated to take this vengeance. When the soldiers come back, Moshe was angry at them because he saw that they took the women prisoners, and he was upset because he realized it was the women Midianites who caused the whole problem to begin with. So it ended up being that only girls were not of marriageable age were allowed to be kept alive, and the rest were all put to death because they had caused the whole plague that had happened. Um, the soldiers are told that they have to purify themselves because they were in battle and they killed people. If you kill someone with a sword or a knife, um, then you have a responsibility to become pure because you're considered to be impure of the coming into contact with the dead. If you shoot someone with an arrow or a gun or something like that, you don't become impure. So that was something that actually Elazar, because Moshe got angry at the people for what happened, the soldiers, what happened, he forgot the halacha, and Elazar had to give the halacha. It's interesting point is that we're told every time Moshe Rabbeinu got angry, he would forget the halacha, and how important it is not to get angry. You don't get angry. You should be in control of your emotions, and everything has to be done through happiness, through simcha, right?
Mhm.
Whether it's you know going to a wedding and making a chatan and kala happy, or whether it's on the Shabbat or the Chag and the praying, or up here on the Temple Mount serving Hashem, or even going to war and killing the enemy. It all has to
Yeah.
be done through simcha, right? Hashem. We're told that one of the curses of Am Yisrael was because they didn't serve Hashem through simcha. So, and here's an expert on simcha is right here. This gentleman is an expert. He can give us his given us. He's a Kohen, giving us the sign that we simcha is the way. That's the only way things can be done that that are complete. And if it's done through anger, that's also not the way to educate. We know you can't educate people through anger. You got to educate them. You got to make. If you want to educate children, you have to make it interesting and they have to make it exciting and they have to be happy. If they're not happy,
Right.
they're not going to learn. So, simcha is a key factor of. In fact, I remember now. Uh, Yehuda, my son Yehuda, was killed 20 years ago. You knew him, Yehuda, of course.
Yes.
Uh, um, for his bar mitzvah, we I quoted, I brought down from the Rabbi Khan's book or Rayon, the whole chapter that he writes about Simcha and how important it is in serving Hashem. And you know, you would think if you're quoting Rabbi Kahani talking about vengeance, you're talking about fighting the anti-Semites and the enemies, but you can take from his teachings tremendous learning on other very important aspects of Judaism, whether it's tzedakah, giving of charity, or chesed, giving of kindness, or being happy, and so on. Because Rabbi Kahana was a complete Jew, and he gave the complete Torah, not bits and pieces like other rabbis do. So, and in fact, that day, speaking of his bar mitzvah, we were up here that day. There was about 8 of us, including Yehuda was here and some other people like Joe Ulster of blessed memory, who was one of the founders of the JDL with Rabbi Khan. You hear me?
Yes. Yes.
So, so we were up here on the Temple Mount, and it was back in the day when we could go up to the top. You see, right here, we're facing now on the eastern side, facing the place of the temple. In those days, they would allow us to go up to the top. Now, because there's so many Jews come up, they stopped allowing us to go up to the top. But we were up there, and there was a film crew from and they were started to film us because it was interesting for them to see Jews on the Temple Mount. What are Jews doing here? They were told, no Jews are allowed, and we're up here on the Temple Mount. And the head of the Waqf, the Mufti, comes around, starts yelling at them and screaming, and to stop filming us. Joe Ulster, he was a tough Jew. He had his walking stick with him. He whacked the Mufti over the head. He told him to shut up. And the Mufti was like, he was like about to pass out. The cops went crazy. They grabbed us and they took us into custody. I thought we were going to miss the bar mitzvah party because we're here we were detained for what happened. After about an hour, they let us go, but it was really Kiddush Hashem, whacking the Mufti over the head with a stick.
Right.
Never forget that. But that's a real Jew who we all know what Joel Olster went through to escape the Holocaust, and then became a fighter for Jewish rights with Rabbi Kahana, forming the Jewish Defense League, and then coming on Aliyah, and fighting for Jewish prisoners who were in jail in Israel, thrown in jail because they wanted to take revenge against Arab terrorism, and um, that was back then. It was a different time. There were very few Jews who came up, and because there were so few Jews that came up, they really didn't care where we went. They didn't stop us. But today, because there's so many Jews that come up here, they have us really limited to where we can go. But on the other hand, they unlike then, if you tried to pray, they repeatedly arrest you. Today, like we know, you can see Jews pray, which is very important. It's one of the um, it's one of the ways of getting more and more Jews to come up. If they know that you can pray here and not be arrested and thrown off, you don't have Arabs screaming at you and police, threatening you, then more people come up. Like last week, I brought a few people up who hadn't been here in many years. They didn't want to come up anymore because of how bad it was back then. They
Right.
came up and they were shocked. They saw how great it was, and that's the only way that people um, see the truth. They have to see it firsthand.
Right.
Otherwise, everybody thinks everything is fake. It's all PR and who knows what. Like the protests in Israel against the judicial reform. I mean, it's just a big show, and they have tons of money coming from Jews in America, so-called Jews in America, self-hating Jews like George Soros, and now they say the Lauder family. Um, uh, Interesting thing about getting back to what's going on here is, I think it's one of the problems with the right wing, and why we can't change anything here, unfortunately, is because the right wing doesn't throw out the left wing progressive people in the government agencies. So, for instance,
Yeah.
new government comes to power, and they have the attorney general is this woman who was appointed by the previous government. She's everything about her is she's not. First of all, she shouldn't have the job because she's not qualified. But she was a political appointee, figuring that if Netanyahu comes back to power, she's going to usurp all his power, which is what she's been doing. And she did it to Itamar Ben-Gvir when he wanted to replace the head of the police in Tel Aviv because he wasn't doing his job, and across the board. And so this week they had a meeting with her, and this is like amazing. And it was like, I think it was Netanyahu and Ben-Gvir and some other people from the government about how the law has to be enforced on these people that are rioting, blocking roads, trying to block the airport, and how the law has to be enforced. She tells them, I mean, outright, she says it. She says, well, if we enforce the law on them, their protests won't be effective. You believe this? This is the Attorney General of Israel. it's like it's Helm. I don't know how would you describe it. It's insanity. On the spot, she should have been fired. I mean, she should have been fired when they first took over. But after that statement, she still has her job. I mean, come on, seriously. This place is a joke.
Let me add to
It's
that. Let me
yeah.
let me add to that. So the opposition you have various polls that are coming out. If elections were held today, this would be the result. And the opposition, they're figuring they could maybe cobble uh, a majority, some kind of a slim majority, and win. So in this majority that they are fixated on, it includes Arab parties. One of the leaders of an Arab party, Ayman Oda. So when Israel had the most recent operation in Jenin, he gets up in the Knesset. He's a Knesset member. He gets up in the Knesset and he supports Jenin. He stands with the terrorists in Jenin. He makes that clear in the Knesset. And all these leftists, they want to embrace him. This is great. He could be part of our government. Let's give him a medal. It's insane. The attorney general let the highway be blocked. Let them break the law. And all of a sudden, when it comes to other people who are protesting about other issues, ultra orthodox, the Siddim, um, when the protests were going on,
Ethiopians,
Gaza,
Ethiopians.
Ethiopians, throw them in jail, use force
Look, I
beyond
was
double
I tell you,
standards.
it's unbelievable the fact that you mentioned these Arab Knesset members that
Yep.
are clearly collaborators with the enemy and the terrorists. I mean, they can run for Knesset and be elected. I can't run for Knesset. I mean, I served in the army. My son served in the army. My son was killed in the army, and I can't run for the Knesset because I'm a uh, I'm a former Kach member who was banned from running to the Knesset in 1992
Yeah.
in the Kach list because
And there you go.
we're
Koch is bad, but supporting Hamas is good in the state of Israel.
I'll tell you something. The fact that this country lasts even 1 second is proof of the existence of God. And
Absolutely. There's no question about it.
anybody who says otherwise is obviously just a moron or blind or insane. I mean, I just can't believe. They have this thing now also with the Chabad. Chabad, somebody brought up the fact that the whole thing with the tefillin, the Chabad people throughout the world, especially here in Israel, they have stands and they put tefillin on men who, just might be walking down the street, didn't put tefillin on in the morning, and they put tefillin on them, and you get them to say Shema Yisrael. It's a very nice act. One of the great things that Chabad has done. And actually, someone wrote an article this past week that it began 56 years ago, 2 days before the Six-Day War broke out,
Hmm.
and that he was told, the Rebbe was told that the war's going to break out, and he was on Shabbat. He told the Hasidim that this is the new campaign. It has to start right away. As soon as Shabbat's over, you have to notify the people in the Chabad people in Israel and start the campaign right away. So they have this kind. It's been going on again for the past 56 years, and in Tel Aviv, it's become like a big thing where they try to stop it. They want to say they have they have pictures of kids going and putting on tefillin, you know, and then these progressive leftists come out and attack it. Say, oh, they're you know they're brainwashing the kids, and this is an evil thing, has to be stopped. And there was this one woman who came up to the and she filmed it. She filmed it herself, and she was attacking them. And she made herself look totally ridiculous. The Chabad guy responded very nicely and calm, cool, and collected. And this woman is screaming and yelling at him because he's putting tefillin on Jews. I mean, like really, come on, seriously. It's not, nobody's forcing it on anybody. The guy stands there, and if somebody wants to put it on, I mean, they had a few years ago an incident like that in the airport where some woman went nuts because the Chabad guy was putting on tefillin. So it's really the, the hatred of Judaism is just unbelievable. Of
Yes.
you know, but if it was some kind of idolatry, some kind of some other religion, oh, it would be total respect. Interesting. There was an interesting article also this past week. No, I've been interesting. What's good about the insanity that goes on here is because a lot of people come out with some interesting articles. It causes the forces of good to reveal themselves. So one of the interesting articles was by Rabbi Zini he used to be the rabbi of the Technion in Haifa,
Right.
and he wrote a very interesting article where he basically says that that the way our leaders are, they are like the true Christians, and he says this is what Christianity was about, the way they're acting, and it's just totally un-Jewish. And and he says that this is the process. It's affected the rabbis. It's affected the leaders. It's across the board that being for thousands of years in the living in the Christian world has caused all these people to act like Christians and
Mhm.
think like. And it's so true, because that's what Rabbi Kana would say, is that they don't live Jewish concepts, and they think that Thomas Jefferson is Judaism or something like that.
Right.
He used to say. Um, I remember once talking in a synagogue in America, and I was saying things, and some guy says to me, "Boy, that stuff sounds real Middle Eastern to me." I said, "Well, where do you think it all came from?" I said, it's just it's just unbelievable how people are so misinformed and that. So um, here we are. We're now headed to the Beit Midrash that we have here in memory of our friends, the Amos couple who were murdered on their way home, coming home from the Temple Mount to their home near Kiryat Arba, the settlement of Beit Chagai, and they were at the forefront of bringing up Russian-speaking Jews to the Temple Mount. They were very successful. Um, Unfortunately, they were killed on their way home. But we every day we're up here and we remind the people. Have the rabbi gives his Torah talk for 5 minutes in their memory, and that's where we are right now. In a few
Well, Baruch,
seconds, yeah.
because of the
Right.
some of the technical difficulties with the screen,
Okay.
let's sign off. It's
All right.
been amazing doing the Parsha. It's incredible doing it every single week. We had a lot of views last week in particular, in fact, and we'll keep promoting it, pushing it, and hopefully there will be. I mean, I see it happening that there will be actual learning going on Harabayat, uh, and more parshas by other people who will be coming up as well, broadcasting it, because that's the way to go. It's got to be exposed. We have to reach more and more people, more and more Jews. We're trying, and we will.
Okay. Keep up the good work, as they say.
Thank you very much, Baruch. Next week.
All right. Okay.
Thank you.
Take
Shalom,
care.
shalom.